morning, everybody. It's wonderful to be here with you all. And thanks to Robin for segueing us into more water-related discussions. This project I'm speaking of is around thank you. The project I'm speaking on is around ecological infrastructure for water security and part of a big team effort. So I want to start off by acknowledging all the people who've contributed. This is a SANBI-led project. It's part of the GEF sort of series of projects. It's GEF 6. So the title of the project is Unlocking Biodiversity Benefits Through Development Finance in Critical Catchments. We are a small team based at Rhodes University who were involved in supporting the social learning and knowledge management aspects of the project. And there are two project outputs that I can refer you to get the bigger picture and the fuller story. So the one is a working paper by Michelle Heasterman, who was running the knowledge and social learning component for a while. And then we've submitted our final report to the Water Research Commission. Anyone who's done a WRC report and project will know that that's a huge relief when one has that done. It hasn't yet been uploaded on their system, but I can share it with you if anyone would like to know more. So this is a diagram where I'm not expecting you to read the text in the boxes. It's just for me to give you a little bit of a sense of the project as a whole. So overall, the project is looking at how we can look at more diverse and innovative finance mechanisms for funding the management of ecological infrastructure for catchment management. And it was based on three demonstration catchments. Our component of the work was this big red box. So it's one of the first projects where social learning and knowledge management has been intentionally designed into the project, funded and resourced fairly effectively, I would say, considering how it happens in other projects. So the goal was to simultaneously improve the quality of engagement processes within the project, but also to improve the actual project outcomes through more effective social learning and knowledge management processes. The first component was looking at enabling and strengthening the processes around in the actual catchments in terms of CMAs, governance processes, etc. The second component was focusing more on the actual finance mechanisms themselves, so engaging with private sector, corporate, government finance mechanisms, etc., to find alternative and diverse sources of financing for managing ecological infrastructure. So a quick dip into the social learning literature. There's a whole huge field, and Bianca's here making me a little bit nervous because she knows it's much bigger than this, but she'll also know that one cannot go into it in this kind of forum. But basically, social learning has been widely recognized as a really important and enabling process for natural resource management. The theoretical frameworks and debates and concepts abound. We're good at that as academics, and we have to generate papers, and so we do. But the implementation of effective, inclusive, transformative social learning remains a real challenge. Given the kinds of messy contexts in the middle, thanks to Martin for giving us such a helpful framework, that we need to be navigating to find meaningful, effective solutions to the complex problems we're facing, learning becomes a really important process. So I'm going to be presenting a few reflections on our small project that we have implemented within this big EI for water security project. And for those who don't know what ecological infrastructure is, there is a definition, but basically it's just another new fancy word with its own whole political backstory about natural functioning ecosystems that deliver valuable services to people. So we were tasked as a project team to develop a social learning and knowledge management strategy for the project to implement that big red block, the enabling environment for the whole project. And I'm going to be sharing a little bit of what that strategy is about and how we developed it. We decided to adopt an approach called strategy as practice, which is a distinctly different approach to what we're used to, where strategy is often developed by a bunch of experts or leaders in an organization or even by external consultants, and then kind of parachuted in and everyone is going to implement it and it's going to all be wonderful, and that often doesn't work. So strategy as practice is more about saying, what is the practice already in this organization or in this space? How do people already do things? And what is already working? And how can we draw on and build on that, enhance it to make things better? So it's a kind of grounded, bottom-up, people-based approach to strategy that we were taking. So there's a whole story about how we did that, which is another talk on another day. But we came up with this framework, and thanks to Liesl Leroux from Living Lands, she was then at Living Lands, who helped us with this. Oh, by the way, one of the team members is here. Pino, where are you? There, Pino's also here. Yeah, so we came up with this framework, which proposed 6 interrelated strategy practices to support social learning, knowledge management, and mediation. And we embedded these within the catchment's context in terms of what people were doing in terms of existing activities, practices, looking at finance mechanisms that were already unfolding, and we're drawing on a situated socio-cultural understanding of learning in how we framed this. So I'm not going to take you through the whole diagram. The important things here are the purple circle. Those are the social learning and knowledge management and mediation strategies, strategy practices. So they're things that people do. So it's about coordinating and convening. Robin needs that in his project. It's about engaging tensions. We all felt this morning in the session. It's about building networks. It's why we're here. It's about learning and sharing. It's about evaluating and changing as we go along. It's about clarifying context and ideas. All of these are things all of us do all the time in our work as people working with knowledge, information, and trying to learn together. So it's nothing brand new, but it's about how we put it together and how we create the right sort of conditions for people to actually implement these things effectively. So this became known as the purple diagram in the project. And it's interesting because when you think about the impacts you have as a project team and as a kind of, you've been brought in as the knowledge experts to design the strategy, you don't think that it's going to be the diagram that sticks, but yeah, the diagram is the thing that stuck with people and that they found really helpful. And thanks to Liesl for putting it together for us. And it's not a complicated diagram, but it captures, as I've said, what people are already doing and helps them to make sense of it and actually do it. So what actually enabled or catalyzed moments of real learning, connecting, and understanding? Having supported then the implementation of the strategy through the life of the project over 5 years, this was one of the big questions we were kind of sitting with at the end of it to try and make sense of whether it has or hasn't worked. And I put this question to a kind of subsection of the project team who joined us for a reflection. And I'm going to put it to you as well. So I want to invite you all to a little reflection. I'm calling it the re-times-3 reflection because we're going to rewind, re-render, and remember for a moment. So all of you have been involved in a particular event which is designed as a learning event. It could be today's event, could be last year's GRIN, could be a workshop you were at 2 weeks ago, could be a training course you went on. Can I ask you to just close your eyes? This is a safe space. Close your eyes. And think back to one particular learning event in the recent past. So rewind in your mind back to that event and think about what did you really learn in that event and what happened that enabled that learning? What kind of new connections were being made while you were learning? And how did you understand or see things differently through that learning? So go back and find a particular event, and within that event, a particular moment where you're like, oh, now I'm really learning, or now we're really learning. And think about what made that possible. Okay, you can come back to me and open your eyes. And I'm going to share with you what our project team came up with. And unfortunately, I won't be able to hear what all of you came up with, but I'm hoping and suspecting that you'll see some things that are familiar. So they talked about how diverse views being brought together and tough questions being asked. This is happening in this very room. Inviting and unlocking real partnership. Having the session in person and everyone bringing an attitude of wanting to learn and understand. A sense of possibility. Openness to new ways of working. Everyone in the meeting being willing and able to freely share their perspectives, being comfortable with being challenged and open to other points of view. An openness to sharing rooted in our own real experiences. There was trust amongst those in the room. Language is important. Speaking the right language to the right people matters. So these are the things that enabled and catalyzed real moments of learning, connection, and understanding in the project. And I hope you've felt them in your own little reflection now as well, some of them. So what we see is that the process or the strategies, practice, and the framework that we proposed to the project team has affirmed and validated their existing ways of learning and knowing. But it's helped to enable, catalyze, and help with articulating that. That's been really important. People felt that their ways of learning and knowing were somewhat invisible and underappreciated, and through the language that the framework gave them, they were able to articulate and motivate for, and in some ways actually sort of leverage support from senior levels about these kinds of processes. So effective social learning, knowledge management, and mediation required certain enabling social relational conditions. Those were captured on the previous slide. And I've tried to summarize them into these 5 sort of overarching themes or bubbles. So an attitude of openness, bravery to ask the tough questions, willingness to be uncomfortable, that's come up here as well, relating with respect and care, and inclusive spaces that foster diversity. So the purple diagram tells us what we need to be doing to enable effective social learning and knowledge management. What it doesn't tell us is how we need to show up and the kinds of spaces that are needed for the learning and knowledge exchange to take place. So that's kind of the new things that we've learned from implementing this framework with this group of people in this project. So a few reflections and conclusions on what we've learned from implementing it. So we see that it has enabled an articulation and integration of shared practices. We see that it's catalyzed important capacity development and emphasized the key role of youth. It's often the youth who are actually able to be brave and who show up authentically. And it's from them that we can learn those skills. And so there's a lot of opportunity to work with the youth around this. We see that there's a lush, deep, and wide landscape of social learning, knowledge management, mediation, and practice unfolding in the ecological infrastructure catchment management space. Robin's work is also part of that landscape. And so while the strategies practice framework for learning and knowledge processes was helpful as a guiding tool, its value emerged in the joined up and caring way in which practitioners engaged authentically with one another, confronted tensions and uncertainties, and reflected on lessons learned in an ongoing, open-minded, and collective manner. So I'd like to just close with a few thoughts on what this might mean for management and operational considerations for those of us who are kind of leading and overseeing this kind of work. So firstly, it has implications for project design and resourcing. One needs to design for and effectively resource these kinds of processes. So even in the EI for Water Security project, there was a whole budget pot allocated to this, yet people still felt it wasn't enough. That's the same thing with everything anyone does. But the point is that social learning and knowledge management requires effective resourcing for it to be able to bear the fruits that it can bear. Secondly, skills development, the importance of building capacity. There are specialized skills needed to facilitate and enable effective social learning and knowledge management. It's not all of our thing, but we need to identify people who have interest in that, and we need to provide the right kind of skills and training and learning opportunities for that. And again, the youth programs and the work for the public good programs are really important kind of seed beds for building these kinds of skills. And then it's got implications for how we monitor and evaluate. And that's another whole story. And Karen is here and can tell you all about monitoring, evaluation, and learning. But we need to develop a better understanding of how to monitor, evaluate, and learn from learning and knowledge management processes. Because it's in how they live and emerge in our projects that we're able to learn and make sense of them and benefit from them. Thank you very much. I'd like to make a big shout out to my mom and Jonah who are here. This is my first conference since before COVID. I had a baby straight after COVID, and it's been a lot, and it's only because of Mom and Jonah that I'm here and able to be here. So thank you to them. They're here, and you saw them last night, some of you. And a very big thank you to the project team. These are joined up processes, and it's joined up work to support them and share about them. So those are some of the members of the team, and thank you for your attention.